Good evening, everyone out there. This week we're starting with mustard.
That's right. There's only one real type of mustard, and it's yellow mustard. Mu- Mustard is the sauce of the trucker stop,
Uh-huh.
because the trucker stop, and they have. And here we have this nice little pork sandwich made with just a slice of just a pork steak sliced thin, and inside a bun, and then you smother it in yellow mustard and you eat it.
See, I'm the kind of person who's got like half a dozen mustards in the refrigerator. None of them are yellow mustard. I start, my base mustard is the New York deli style mustard.
Mm.
Then I move into your sweet mustards, your honey mustards, and your hot mustards, your horseradish or Dijons.
I do like Dijon mustard. The first time I tried Dijon mustard, I applied it. I smothered the meat, and it was okay. This is different.
All right, this is a different sort of thing right here.
Yeah, but I do like Dijon mustard.
I like New York deli style mustard is good on sandwiches. I don't know if you have that over there, but it's good stuff.
Oh yeah.
Good evening, Titgoblin. It's mustard time.
Yeah, we just have that type of mustard. I mean, we even have our own brands. We don't need the foreign brands for mustard.
Yeah. Well, that's not really a brand as a style. Like lots of things call themselves New York deli style. Some just deli style. Eric P. I have yellow, CNAP, Swedish, and then a couple of fancy options. Though I still don't know the difference really, because I've had both of them. Dijon and stone ground Dijon. Except for the color, they're kind of the same.
Yeah. I suppose one of those you want to claim that it's not typical store bought.
Yeah. But I buy
you want to feel the ground. It's natural mustard. Of course, there's nothing.
I think in the Grey Poupon brand.
Yeah, of course, there's nothing natural about mustard.
Stone ground has seeds, as I recall. It has the appearance of seeds, but it's really as soft as other mustard. It's not like you're eating seeds. So it's kind of
ours is only slightly spicy, but it does leave an aftertaste.
See, Titgoblin says sweet pickled mustard is like the national food here in Newfoundland. People go insane for that stupid stuff. I don't know that I've had sweet pickled mustard. I've had honey mustards. That is sweet pickled mustard like a mustard relish combo? Friar Tuck says Wiener's horseradish mustard. Yeah. Horseradish mustard is pretty good. I'm not even sure if Wilson's going to be here tonight. Evening, Jared. How's Hate Revisited? I actually
you didn't buy the new Hate?
Yeah, the new Hate. I got 14 comics this week.
Dang,
it was like crazy.
You know have to produce more comics to pay for those.
Yeah, the new Hate Revisited. And it turns out the reason it's called Hate Revisited is because the Hate books, they've aged. Like as time has gone by, they've gotten like he started out in high school in the Bradleys. And by the time Buddy buys a dump around, he was a full-grown adult. I don't even know how old he was. Closing in on 40 in New Jersey. I had to order it from my shop. They didn't get any in. Yeah, I pre-ordered mine. My friend Rob, who I meet at the shop usually every week, I showed him this, and he's like, "Oh, you got any more of those?" Or maybe he didn't, so he had to pre-order one. Because Rob must have. I don't think Rob scours the pre-orders as closely as I did. And we've got it's got like a few stories in it. The first story is when Buddy met Lisa, so that's a flashback to the very earliest days of Hate when he met his now wife Lisa. Then there's Buddy Bradley just wants to be a nothing, which I think is later on in his life. This is later on in his life, but he's still on the West Coast and he's meeting up with his old room. So this is maybe 10 years later from, I think, the first story where he's meeting up with his own old roommate and having a dinner. But I think they're still in Washington. They're not in New Jersey left. That's the second story. And the third story is Buddy and Valerie make big plans. Okay, this is 1991, it says. That's the fourth story. That's a short one. And then and then it says, oh, this same story, we go back to the present. So, and let's see. Then the last one is back in 19. So he switches between, there's like 5 or 6 stories. Some are just a few pages. Some are 8 pages, but he's revisiting different times in Buddy's life. But the strange thing to me in this, I don't know, let me show you this, is the quality. I don't know if it's the printing. I don't know. If you look at like, it's his line quality isn't quite what it used to be. I can especially see it in his lettering, how his lettering is closing up a little bit. So let me see if I can find a particular page it's like, if you like look at the line quality in this pattern, and that's his son there too now. So he's aged that much. But if you look at like the line quality in the sun, I don't know if that's pencil that's been darkened and he's not inking it. But meanwhile, here's I pulled this one out just to compare it. Here's Peter Baggs' Other Lives, which is from 2010. And the line quality and lettering is perfect in this. And I think this hand lettering too he's doing. As far as I know, nothing is big. And I don't know how many people are going to notice it besides me. But like right here, we can see that the hand lettering is just a little rougher than it used to be. Like I said, I don't know how many people are going to notice that. I don't know if it's from the scans and the printing or his artwork.
No. Is he working with smaller paper while drawing now?
No. I just have no idea. But I know it was noticeable to me. Like, I don't know how many people are going to notice it. Well, here's one I can show you, like a panel. Like in this, see how like his cross hatching is all closing up?
Mm-hmm.
Now, that could just be bad scans. I don't know who scanned it. I don't know who did the production on it. The artwork could be fine, and that could be bad scans, or he could be getting old. You know, line quality is affected as you get older. Some of it looks almost sketchy at times, his line. It's like instead of being a smooth ink line, it looks more like a pencil line that they then darkened in Photoshop. But like that's just, the comic is good either way. I mean, it was a good issue of Hate, but that's just something I noticed. Here's a good one. Like, look at this, especially that 100% at the end. Notice how the two O's in 100 are touching, and in percent, everything's running together, and it's a little shaky. It's not like that one doesn't quite look like a one.
Protests, the S is dangling from the rest of the word.
Yeah, like I said, I don't know what that's due to.
Mm-hmm.
But I noticed it was definitely looking a little rougher to me than Peter Baggs' work usually. Like I don't know if anyone else is going to notice that.
Now, how old is he, and could he have some eyesight issues?
He's got to be in his mid to late 60s.
Okay,
I think
so. Maybe eyesight or hand
could
control.
Just be age.
Yeah. Yeah, he's 66.
Let's see. 66. Wober's, not Wieners. It was Wober's horseradish mustache. Mustard. So I'm saying mustache. It's a honey mustard with chunks of dill pickle in it. Okay, yeah, that sounds like a mustard relish thing that we
So you,
got.
you put something that has vinegar inside something that was made with vinegar.
Yeah. Eric P. I got 4 comics this week. Fantastic Four 21, Heroin Haven number 5, Planet Comics 28, Usagi Yojimbo Crow number 3. I did not get my Usagi Yojimbo this week because mine came in. All the Usagis came in damaged to my shop. Matter of fact, 2 of the comics I got this week out of the 14 were comics that got damaged 2 weeks ago, so they had to reorder them. Yeah, the whole thing looks a little rougher for sure. Just a little bit too. Not even like especially rough. But I just noticed it. My copy looks a bit blurry. I thought it was a production thing. Like I don't, it might be a production thing. It could just be bad scan. It wasn't scanned as precisely as it could have been scanned. But I'm not sure. Really looking forward to reading it. It is one of my all-time favorites too. I really enjoyed this issue. Like it was fun to revisit different periods in his life too. Everything is a bit fuzzy and bleeding. Yeah, that's a good description of it. Like I said, I don't know if that's a production thing or it's his art getting a little rougher because like he's 66. But either way, the stories were fun. I mean, I enjoyed it thoroughly. So yeah, I don't know. Because that's what happens to artists as they get older. Sometimes, who was that? Monet spends the last years of his life doing paper cutouts because he can't paint anymore. So instead of painting, he was lying in his sick bed / deathbed making paper cutouts. Everything's a bit fuzzy and bleeding. That's a perfect comment to the state of Gen X at this point, says Eric P. The official comic of grunge. Hate was at one time, back when people cared about grunge. But yeah, Hate number 1 did not disappoint, except for, I was trying to figure out why everything was a little bit fuzzy and bleeding. As far as I know, it wasn't an artistic choice. And we don't know where Wilson is tonight.
Didn't say anything.
We didn't hear from him.
Maybe he's on vacation in Florida and didn't bother telling us.
Oh, did you see there was a guy I didn't know, a comic book YouTuber's death this week?
Yeah, Comic Storian.
Comic Storian. That guy had 3 million subscribers.
Yep.
Like, holy cow.
Yeah, and the only thing he did was read out comics.
Right. But that got me thinking. Comic Crack says it's coming back. My daughter asked me about a month ago if I've heard of a band called Nirvana. All right. Love grunge music to this day. Was a very young adult when I like some of the hits from grunge, but I was like out of pop music by the time grunge came around. So I really didn't get much of it. Fuzzy and Bleeding, the new grunge album from whatever grunge band is left, says Eric P. Sleepy Reader says, hello, Cavernous Jared and Cavernous Paolo. Good evening, Sleepy Reader. Wilson in Tom Hanks' voice. Good evening, all mind the comics. But that got me, like I said, that guy who died, Comic Storian, 3 million subscribers. And all he did was, how dare you compare pop to grunge? Sorry, grunge became pop. I mean, in terms of when I mean pop, I just mean popular music. I don't mean a style of music. And grunge was definitely pop music in terms of being popular. Is Wilson at Heroes Con? I don't know. Usually on Thursday I say who's around for a show on Friday, and Wilson and Paolo answer. Sometimes Chris. Popular, I get it. Yeah, but we didn't hear from Wilson these last 2 days. So, but what?
I didn't like Comic Storian because there was Comic Storian was part of a, let's call it, guild. Of people who sometimes collaborated, and they had 4 or 5 of them usually got together on a podcast called Weekly Pool. And when I
Okay.
was trying to get into comic book YouTube,
Uh-huh.
I found Weekly Pool, and which was basically them discussing next week's releases. And Benny, comic historian, he was abrasive,
Mm-hmm.
so I was not a fan.
Uh,
But he and Rob, who is Comics Explained, they were kind of shallow in their treatment of in regards to how they treated comics.
oh yeah.
Yeah, Benny. You can say that Benny and Rob were they were excited about reading comics,
Mm-hmm.
but they did not venture too far in analyzing them. So I wasn't really learning much. I suppose a lot of people who were just getting into comics or who didn't feel like reading, who had stopped reading comics or didn't feel like reading too many comics, they listened to they listened to the shows and they liked it. So,
Yeah.
but it wasn't for me. I ended up following Comic Pop, but that thing is clearly, which was one of the guys from the Weekly Pool, Sal, and he was trying to be smarter than he was.
Uh,
Uh, uh,
he
so he
was
ended up being,
aspirational.
yeah, he was dismissive of a few things just to sound smarter.
Oh, okay.
So I was following him, and so I was following Sal instead of Comic Historian. The other guys, they weren't much. Cape Joel was a new guy, was decided to review comics even though he hadn't read any before, which ended up with me unsubscribing from him when he said that Gary Frank's Superman was much better than John Romita Jr. drawing Captain America. And the examples he showed clearly showed that Romita Jr.'s Captain America was much better, because he picked an image of Cap talking to Sharon Carter, and he took out the panel, the word balloons, so that he wasn't showing all the dialogue, and just from the body language, Romita Jr. could show that you could tell that Cap and Sharon were old acquaintances. They were comfortable with each other. They were smiling while they talked. And the Superman image he picked was basically Superman just standing static in the air. And no, that's not. Sorry, Cape Joel. Go read more comics. No.
I think we got more music talk going on here. Sleep says grunge was the last interesting rock phase that I know of. Me too, but that just could be because we're old. Correct,
Yeah.
Sleepy. And rock isn't really popular anymore.
Yeah,
Sleepy reader,
rock only became interesting for me when they started making it with machines. So LCD sound system.
When major labels shut out high energy rock scene of the late 90s and made grunge the last interesting mainstream rock movement. Yeah, so Led Zeppelin was pop? I don't know that Led Zeppelin charted. Anything that's on the Billboard top 100 or whatever, or up near the top especially, is pop music, because that's how they measure popular music. And when I was a kid in the 70s, Led Zeppelin was album rock. It really didn't chart. So I don't know. If Led Zeppelin was right or not. Right. I'm too old to figure out the fringes anymore, Eric. 100%. Eric, the scene was mainstream in the Nordic countries where a lot of it originated from, but the UK, as many examples, pretty much didn't give it any play. Yeah. But let's get back to comic historian with no high in the middle. Comic and historian. Like I said, I never watched his channel because that's not my thing. Listening to the plots of comics is just not my thing. But 3 million viewers is no joke. And I watched a couple of the tributes to him. And that's when I realized something that I hadn't realized about comics before. First of, first, especially Marvel and DC comics, I should say, because that's all he covered is Marvel and DC comics. It wasn't like
Yep.
he was doing indie stuff. But I've heard before that when people say, "Oh, comic books are our modern mythology," I always kind of dismiss that because it's kind of people wanting to be comics to be more important than they are. And there's no religious aspect to comics either, which a lot of what we call mythology now is religion. But it made me realize
it's the easiest thing. It's the easiest word. Those are the easiest words to drop and to learn and drop when you're trying to make comics sound smarter.
Right. But here is where I think this is what I never thought of. But when you think of the fact that, he's got a subscription base of, I didn't see what each video has got. My videos get a fifth or a tenth of my subscription base. So I imagine his are around the same, but some are even bigger. But I don't even think there's 3 million active comic book fans in the USA. I think that number is bigger than the number of active comic book fans. I mean, someone who goes and actually buys comic books. I don't think there's 3 million people buying comic books in the USA. But what it made me realize was what he was doing was sort of comparable to like the old, like 2,000 years ago, ancient Greek storytellers, where the ones who told you the stories in epic poem, like would, Homer, when he would get out there and tell you the Iliad and the Odyssey, and they weren't all writing them. They were written, they were passed down, and maybe somebody, but I think the vast majority of the storytellers of that time were they were telling you the stories. And I think that's what like guys like comic historian were and are doing, is that there are still people out there who don't want to read comic books, but they want to hear the stories of comic books. And that's why it's all Marvel and DC too, because there's 50, 75 years of stories that you can tell. And so there's always new stories to hear starring the heroes So it's like when he gets on there and tells, I don't know what happened in Spider-Man Dark Reign or something. People who have no interest in maybe they read some Spider-Man comics back in the day. Maybe they watched some Spider-Man movies. They know who Spider-Man is. They have no interest in reading any of the comics, but they like hearing the stories about Spider-Man. Sort of in a way, back when that was the only thing around, people liked hearing stories about Odysseus, Ulysses, or Hercules, or whoever the great heroes were back, the great Greek heroes, or whatever part of the world you were in. They were telling, everyone told stories, because you're listening to a story about a character and you have some relationship with in your mind, and you don't have to read. So I think it just struck me that I think that's why that sort of channel taps into something that goes back thousands of years into human history. And comic books, Marvel and DC comic books specifically, are one of the only things you can do that with.
Right.
There he is. We were just wondering where you were. Who was it? Mind the Comics was calling out Wilson in Tom Hanks' voice. So
hello.
I really think that is something that comic historian and those other guys tapped into. To recap, Wilson, a comic book YouTuber died this week who I didn't know at all. He was one of these big comic book YouTubers who had 3 million subscribers.
I knew of him, and I watched a few of, I believe, his TikToks. I may or may not have ever watched him on YouTube, but I am aware of him and that he.
Right. And all he does is he recaps what happened in comics or in different stories over the years from Marvel and DC. And I was just saying that I had these sort of watching some of the tributes to him. I got the idea that sort of tying into an old storytelling tradition. So, like I said, with the ancient Greeks, when the ancient Greeks poets used to tell stories about the ancient Greek heroes to people. And there are people who want to hear the stories of Spider-Man and Batman and Superman, but they don't want to read the comics. They got no interest in reading the comics, but they want to hear the stories. And that's, I think, a niche. Tough to call it a niche with 3 million subscribers that these guys fill that I didn't even realize, exist. Because some of the like tributes I said I watched from, there's a couple of people who said, well, I really like finding out what's happening with, without reading the comics. I'm like, yeah, I think there are people who just like, and you can only do that with Marvel and DC comics because they've got 50 or 75 years of story to tell, and everybody knows most of the heroes. It's like if you read Spider-Man comics 25 years ago and you don't want to read Spider-Man comics, but you want to hear some stories about what's going on in Spider-Man, you can go to one of those. And I think a lot of people are like that. Like I don't even think there's 3 million active comic book buyers in the US, but he's got 3 million subscribers. It's just kind of like, made me think about what was going on there.
Yeah, he fills kind of that kind of niche. The other person that's similar to him is Comics Explain. I watch him because I enjoy listening to him tell a story.
Right.
And make, again, it's one of those things like, oh, I do not know this particular storyline.
Right.
Let me listen, and and that's quicker to look online to find someone who might do a synopsis type of thing instead of looking for the issues and reading them myself. So I could see why that niche is like to be read, so to speak.
But I think you can also only do it with Marvel and DC, because if you went back and wanted to tell a story of some random indie comic from 1996, way fewer people would turn in.
You don't even need random.
I don't know. People like stories.
I'm not sure people would tune in to watch a recap of Hellboy.
Yeah. Or Negation, my favorite cross-gen.
Yeah, Negation definitely not.
Which I did videos on. Not that many people tune in.
If we keep it to the most famous indie comic properties of the last decade or 2 decades, you wouldn't get that following if you were doing recaps of Hellboy or The Walking Dead.
Right. Eric P says,
I don't know.
I think there might be a recap audience. There might be an audience, but not 3 million, I don't think, of these. I think you need the breadth and depth of the Marvel and DC universes to get that many people tuned in.
Also, I think that the original TMNT is too far removed from the mainstream of experience of TMNT.
Yeah. Because I think the TMNT, you'd want to do more of a nostalgia thing. Eric P also says, from what I see, comic book channels seem to fall into a couple of main types: hat book spec channels, recap channels, and analysis channels seem to be the main ones.
You can add the parading channels, which are the ones where people just say, and I got this comic, and I got this comic, and I got this comic, or when they take the comics out of the box just to show them off. But they don't talk about them.
There are haul pull list haul, in haul channels too, where they just, you're right, they don't really talk about anything, they just show the comics. There's still some of those out there.
And then we have the ones like our friends Dr. Silver Age and Graphic Man, where it's mostly nostalgia. Just showing the comics, especially when we're talking about Archie and or Casper, because they don't have lasting storylines. It's just the character doing something that time. It's fun, but funny, but inconsequential.
Right. Speaking of Archie, I got an Archie comic this week. Wicked Trinity. Here, we'll show you this one. I got 14 comics this week, Wilson. That's a lot.
I saw you mentioned it. I didn't go through the whole video, but I did see that you mentioned that you had that many.
It's a from Sabrina's Magical World. And it's about these 3 witches in high school who want to be more powerful. Actually, they want to cast a spell to make everybody know that they're powerful witches. That's what they're trying to do. And it's by, who is it? Sam Maggs, Lisa Sturl, Ellie Wright, and Jack Morelli. Oops, there we go. Jack Morelli, who was a bullpenner just before I was. He was a letterer. But nice.
I recognize that name.
Yeah. Nice. He used to stop by in the early 90s a bit. But, I enjoy these sort of adult Archie ones. And this one was, $4 rather than the Archie special $5 one, which I still don't know what made it special because I didn't buy it. But nice story. Chilling Adventure. Nice. They always have nice covers too. Chilling Adventures, Truth or Dare. There's a cover coming up. Judgment Day is that Archie one I didn't get. Even that's got some nice covers on it. I got to say, Archie does a good job with their covers, which is why I started trying these. Here are the 2 Wicked Trinity covers. Both of them are nice. Who are they by? Lisa Sterle. I don't know if it's Sturl or Sturley. And Sue Lee is the other one. But another solid, nice comic about these 3 high school. And this is leading into something, I think, too. This is only a one-shot. But it's leading into Let the Witch Wars Begin. And it also tells you, because I think this is the first time these 3 have teamed up. So here's your hot book alert. Amber Nightstone got a chance to use her in the 2023 one-shot Welcome to Riverdale. And let's see. Was lucky enough to write their introduction story in 2023's Sabrina Annual Spectacular. So we get that one to get the first appearance of 2 of the Wicked Trinity. Hot book alert. Woo-hoo! For all those Archie fans out there. Let's see. The modern mythology thing is understandable in a less and less religious Western society. Yeah. Spider-Man, Batman, Marvel movies are working as common interests and legacy links between fathers and sons nowadays. Yeah, I just think it's still just I was saying, I don't know if Wilson was here for this when I was saying when I started that whole thing talking about the old time storytelling, I always took it with a grain of salt when people said comic books are the modern mythology, because I always thought people said that to make comics sound more important. But I think there is some truth to that.
Yeah. This reminds me of something I read once, because the Robin Hood, even though he's usually the character is usually thought that he's based on real people, there's no evidence that anyone was ever called Robin Hood and lived in Sherwood Forest, or even that he was a nobleman called Robin of Locksley. But what I read is that when Robin Hood starts appearing, the first time he's attested is around the 15th century, and it's a singing friar who say that he knows tales of Robin of the Wood. Mm-hmm. So yeah, the mythological aspect of having a shared story to tell and disseminate throughout the people. It is present even if there's no religious aspect, because
Right.
we do have the heroes, which are usually tied to a people or land, and they have stories of their own, even if they're not thought of as having any supernatural function.
Mm-hmm. And the arting, the writing is pretty good. Friar Tuck and these art. I mean, it's solid writing. I mean, it's not Alan Moore. It's not going to take your breath away, but they tell a good story, I have to say. I generally have no complaints about any of the writing in those. I mean, it's also, and what was always funny to me is that the Archie horror books are real horror. People die in them. There's Satan in them. So they're really not the children's line of Archie. And P says, funny that Archie art looks less, Archie than a book like the Santos Sisters. Yeah, because they're really not trying to be classic Archie. They're trying to be a different thing. Comic books for adult comic book fans, not rated X adult comic book fans, but you're Spider-Man and Batman fan. But I actually ordered the latest issue of I haven't been buying the Santos Sisters regularly, but I think it was last week I pre-ordered one of the latest issues just because I haven't read an issue of this in a while, and that cover looks cool, so I've ordered it. A pre-order.
Going back to the thing that Eric P said about the type of channels, and I mentioned the Nostalgia Parade channels.
Right.
The Nostalgia Parade channels they're not the reason, but they point out the problem where the analysis channels have so few viewers.
Yeah.
And it's not because they're trying to be brainy or intelligent or whatever. It's because when you do the nostalgia channels are easy, because eventually you'll go through a comic that other people remember, right, or they have a design language or a storytelling motif that's familiar with the people, even if they didn't read that particular comic. So it's easy to find common ground with the people just by doing nostalgia. It's not that easy when you're doing analysis, because right, if somebody's analyzing a comic that you haven't read, you don't feel the need to listen to that analysis. You need the nostalgia to, okay, so let's go over Secret Wars, which is something that most people have read, even if only just once, because there's really no point in reading it a second time.
I read half of it.
I disagree. I read it almost every year, but that's me. I was the target audience.
Secret Wars is something that most people will have read, so it's easy to do an analysis of Secret Wars. It's not so easy to do an analysis of New Defenders. You will have less people interested. If you do an analysis channel, either you're lucky at doing being found through nostalgia by a particular fan of that character, and they like your analysis well enough that they will come back for a character that they haven't heard of or haven't read. So you do need the nostalgia aspect first in order to draw them in.
And I think like you said, the Graphic Man's channel, or what I think that like the overall category should be just showing comics, and then other like my pull list haul can fall under showing comics, because that's basically when, even though I talk about them a little, I'm basically showing you what comics I got that week. Yeah. And then Graphic Man is showing you comics too, just with this nostalgia angle. Then there's people like Don the Comic Book Junkie, who are just showing covers of the stuff. No, like at least I talk about the comic I get for a minute or two.
Yeah.
With like Don, there's no talk. He's just saying, "Oh, I got this one. I got this one. I got this." Like today, I saw one where he was just showing the issues of Demon he has in his collection. So it's not like he really has a lot to say about the Demon besides a comment here or there. He's just so I think the showing channels are one genre.
After Comics, I like After Comics because even though he'll pull out, he has all of the pre-Iron Man issues of Tales of Suspense, and he'll do a video on them. And he did. He's only showing those covers, but he's not even talking about this. In 1962, my parents used to do a vacation in Lake whatever, and I didn't have any comics, but there was this place that we stopped at once, and I was going to buy some chewing gum, and he'll tell a story like that, even if it's just showing the comics, and that in itself is interesting because nobody else is doing that, and if somebody else does it, it won't sound as genuine as After Comics doing it.
But I think that falls under the showing and nostalgia.
Yeah, it does. But it is a.
But it's a different twist. I like it.
Yeah,
I just think like the showing is the overall type of channel, and there's all different types of showing.
Yeah, because what we did in Graphic Man, you get a lot of people that do the show without telling, but we get all of us together, and eventually we'll start asking questions.
Right.
Because there were so many people in the live stream at the same time, so we can't get to talk about them, even if it's just okay. These are hard to find nowadays because a lot of people are going, which is usually Eric Breen complaining that the romance comics are getting harder to find. You see, people more interested in CGC stuff. A lot of the superhero comics are now getting priced out of the market. So the people looking for something to collect went after the romance comics, which were previously ignored by everyone.
Mm-hmm. Let's see. Another type of channel I thought of, one that dabbles in all of them. Cartoonist Kayfabe was one that seems to do all of them in one way. Well, I think like their Cartoonist Kayfabe was a promotional channel. Cartoonist Kayfabe existed to promote Jim Rugg and
Ned Piscor.
Ned Piscor.
New material, yeah.
And they, it was their love of comics that they used to promote their stuff. So I think they would, a type of, like their channel would do anything to, and they weren't, and any kind of, I think you're right. They'll take any type of video and do it because that they need to make videos. That's what they needed to do, to make videos to promote their careers. So I think you're right. They'll take from any of the genres that most of us just do one of. I mean all different types of. Yeah, I think they do. Jared, your pull list has 3 elements: the top of the printer books, which are nostalgia. Yeah, that's true. Then you show your haul. Then you show your artwork, which is much more indie comic. Yeah, like I said, I think mine generally falls under the showing of comics, but it's got a little quirkiness in it. It's got my own sort of thing going. Comic Tropes, is he still going on? Yeah, he's
I think so. I watched something similar. What was the guy's name? Let's see if I can find him. I have 200 and something channels subscribed here.
That is another genre, I think, that Comic Tropes is in, and that's the wanting to be popular genre.
Yeah. The one I follow that's like Comic Tropes is Strange Brain Parts, which is sort of an analysis channel. Strange Brain Parts is a guy that doesn't show his face. Nobody knows his real name, and he doesn't interact with other channels, but he does have loyal fans.
I think, like you said, there are channels that they want to be professional. They want to be popular. They want to make money in YouTube. I don't really know Comic Tropes that well, but from looking at some of his videos, I think that's true of Comic Tropes. but I'm not really sure. But I've seen other channels like that in the past where it's like that, like we've all, though I haven't seen any in a while. Maybe I just don't get them anymore. There are people who make comic book video, trying to make a popular YouTube channel, and they just chose comic books to try and make it with. And they really want to be in showbiz kind of thing, which I don't think Comic Show Tropes wants to. But they really want
the Gary, what's his name? What was the guy's name?
I don't know, but I think they want to be in showbiz, and a comic YouTube channel is their starting point. Eric P says, I like Comic Tropes and Strange Brain. I like both of them. I think both fall generally on the analysis channels with some recap elements. Yeah, I just think some of the analysis channels are trying to be more professional than others. Maybe really just our analysis, though. Like, I don't like channels that look too professional.
Yeah, the one that I mentioned, Strange Brain Parts. He kind of wants to be the real life lore of comics. And even if you've never seen a real life lore, it may have been promoted. It may show up on the promoted videos in the main page for you, which is like something like look at the way the economy of the Middle East is changing because of this thing that happened, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. And another comic I got this week, Love Me, a Romance Story. Issue 2 of 4, I think it is. And this is the one by the artist who drew the flamingos in that one book that But this is the one about the robot who's trying to find love. And the one question I had about this book is, why are these gangsters getting in a fist fight with a robot?
This isn't going to end well.
I mean, to be fair to them, they were trying to shoot the robot, and they did have some other weapons. But I think it didn't work out very well for these gangsters trying to beat up a robot.
Yeah, contrary to what Hollywood tells you, there are several types of bullets which can perforate metal. So you know how cops hide behind the car's doors in a shootout. Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, if you hide behind the car's doors, you're dead. Might as well stay.
You really hide behind the engine block, as they say. Yeah. Sometimes. But this is
which they would do if they stayed inside the car.
Friend,
criminals aren't that bright.
What was that?
Criminals are not that bright. They still attempt to shoot Superman, and when the gun is empty, they throw it at him, as if that's going to do anything.
Stefano Cardicelli is the artist. And like I said, I only discovered him with whatever the heck that book was that I can't remember the name of now. But they're both Mad Cave books. And Mad Cave 10 years. I only heard of them when Mike Martz was hired there, but they've been around 10 years, they say. But like I said, I really enjoy this artwork. And it's kind of a fun story. $5 book. Teen. But one of my many books. I'm like, how did I end up with? Well, I know how I ended up with 14 books. I bought a bunch. I actually only had 11 on my pull list. Then I picked like 3 first issues up off the stand. So I was like, I was like, in for a dime, in for a dollar. May as well get some more first issues.
In for $5, in for another $5.
No, they were the $4 ones I was buying. I think the whole lot cost me $53 because I get a discount, like a 10% discount. So it wasn't as bad as it could have been. Yes, that's the Don't Spit in the Wind artist. That's the name I couldn't remember. Yes, that is it. He said, I think he wrote Don't Spit in the Wind, but he only was drawing this one. For Head Koski says, wish I was at Heroes Con. Yeah. It's Heroes Con, that's the one that's in where's Charlotte?
Yes, I believe
yeah.
so.
Yeah, that one's supposed to be good. I always hear good things about that one.
I hear many good things about it. The main thing seems to be like what people would be considering it a traditional Comic Con from back in the day where they focused mainly on comic books. And I hear a lot of comic book artists make out pretty well at that show,
Yeah, I've
selling
heard
their original artwork.
Right there. It's good for comic book people. There's fewer what's it? That one in Baltimore. Okay, those are good ones.
Right.
I was thinking another word other than spit in the wind. Don't tug on Superman's cape. Eric P. I was going to go, but life got in the way this year. Dealers galore. Oh, and New York Comic Con rejected my educator pro badge. I was like, what the?
Really?
What's up with them? Right after the show last week, I think it was.
Like, did they watch the show?
Must have. One of the don't piss in the wind. Don't do that either.
Don't piss against the wind. You can't piss in the wind.
Don't eat yellow snow.
One of the ones I pulled off the shelf was Rifters. Which, who's it by? Brian Poshen and John Troman are the writers. Chris Johnson is the artist. Mark Englert is the colorist. And Joe Sabino is the letterer. I'll give you a look at the art. And I'll show you the panel that sold me. I generally liked the art when I flipped it open. Once again, there's a $4 book, not a $5. So I was like, okay. The $5 books I put back. Now I was just flipping through and it seemed to me there's Vincent Van Gogh there, Hitler, and some people hiding in the bunker. And where's the one that? Here it is. JFK in a dress in Marilyn Monroe. I was like, all right, I'll see what this one is about. And what it's about is a lot of the beginning was explanation on how they invented time travel. And then they outlawed time travel. And then they said, no, you can have time travel. And so time travel became a commercial thing where you could buy a time machine. And then they outlawed it again because everybody was messing everything up. So now...
Don't feed the dinosaurs.
These matter of fact, there's one panel that said, where is it? See if I can find it. And remember that? There we go. Like when some idiot saved the dinosaurs. So now I guess that these guys are like time travel cops. They're trying to set things straight. A fun first issue. I gotta say. And it ends with some kid about to be hit by a car in the 20s. And I have no idea who that kid is. Am I supposed to be especially worried for him? I don't know. They're just like a kid's getting hit. Oh, there's a lot of kids who are.
I would probably guess that would be connected to the Valentine's Day massacre. Just looking at the car and looking at the box of roses, that's the only thing I could think of that's historically a big event that could possibly connect to it.
And I think that, what did they say? What did I just read? These are regulators of the infinite and finite time police. You're in violation of code 765239, intertime bootlegging. So I guess they were going back in time to get barrels of bootleg liquor.
I would go back in time and get old comic books.
Yeah.
And there would be new comic books. You know?
But a fun first issue. I'll get a second one and give that another read.
We can even afford to drive around looking for specific newsstands with specific comics. Gas will be cheap.
Yeah. Special newsstand version. Did you make it to the comic shop this week, Wilson?
Not at all.
Mm-hmm.
Not at all. I end up having 3 projects going to bed this week. And everything, as usual, was a rush until it wasn't. And then it was like one of those things. We need this. We need this. And then all of a sudden, oh, hold on, everything. Okay.
Hurry up and wait.
There's so much hurry up and wait that it's like, I got to the point where it's like, all right, I'll just pivot to the next project just because I got to finish the next project.
Eric P. says you could bring your old comic book back and do a recap channel. Go back and get some. These are the comics I found in time.
Yeah, I'm gonna go back in time 12 years and start a YouTube channel when YouTube is still new. That way, I too can have 3 million followers.
Yeah. Oh, one of the things.
Did you guys watch the Rick Parker interview on Dollar Bin Bennett's?
No, I have not watched that. I'm gonna have to.
I have not. I have not watched that. And did you guys see the Frank Miller article that has come out talking about finally talking about how he's been sick for a while, and we all didn't know what he was sick for. And so there was an article that came out recently. I thought I shared it with you guys. I might have thought about it and just never sent it out because I'm good at doing that. And so there was one that came out.
Waiting for like a Frank Miller video of some kind.
Right. I think it's part of the video.
Okay.
That there's a Frank Miller video, a biography type video being made on him and on his life.
Was that
but I haven't seen the Rick Parker one.
I think there's going to be a documentary about Frank Miller, isn't it?
I think so.
I think so.
Was the Rick Parker interview good?
Yeah, he talked about how he got started, and then how he found his way to Marvel. He had especially good things to say about his editors, who encouraged him to write because he didn't know if he could write or not. He has a graphic novel. Is an autobiographic graphic novel.
I pre-ordered that when it came because I know Rick, so I'm friends with him on Facebook. He posts on Facebook quite a bit, so I've been following. He's posted pages over the last few years about his graphic novel, which is about him being drafted in the Armory in the late '60s, I think it was. He's posted a lot of interesting things too about when he moved to New York when he was young, right out of the Army or something, I guess. And he wanted to be and he got into comics not knowing what comics were. But I think it was, he was in downtown in New York somewhere. And whatever apartment building he was living in had this little window in the front of it next to the stoop. And he used to put on his own art shows in that little window. He had a name for it, too. So He was always doing sort of his own art shows in late 70s, it must have been. Mid 70s. So yeah, he's an interesting guy, Rick. Drew Beavis and 60 issues of Beavis and Butthead. Good stuff.
Yeah, basically, he said with all the ownership changes, that's when they canceled all the
Right.
all the licensed books, and he was out of a job,
Yeah.
even if it was selling.
Yeah, because he was making good money on that Beavis and Butthead book.
Mm.
He was selling some copies. He was getting some good royalties. Then it's just all in
Incentives.
through no
Incentives.
fault of your own.
Incentives, love checks.
Incentives.
Love
Marvel did not
incentive.
make
No
yes.
royalties, incentives.
No royalties, incentives. That's just like
Yeah.
that's probably one of the last things I'll remember about Marvel is going to be
Nah.
no
Yeah.
royalties, incentives.
Yeah, but they're not even love checks. At least Todd tells you that he loves you.
Yeah. Speaking of Todd, I
Ooh, a
got
$3 comic.
the second issue of Monolith. This is 2 out of 3. There's only 3, and I didn't put that. I was lucky they had a shelf copy because I must have not decided to put. I thought I was putting this on my pull list. You know, last of the $3 comics, all Todd stuff, and this takes place in the new universe Spawn stuff. But I find it's got some cool artwork. Let's see who does it. Additional dialogue by Todd McFarlane. The writer is Sean Lewis. The artist is Valerio Giordano. Colors are Ulysses Areola. Lettering and world design. And which Spawn is this? This is one of the Spawn. This one took place in some alternate but I just found this actually ties in to Spawn 300, which I haven't read because it was back before I was buying Spawn, because Spawn 300 was a $10 book, and I was like, no thanks. I don't think I started buying Spawn until like issue 315 or something like that. Like must have been over a year later, but there's someone in here called Omega Spawn, who's like the biggest, baddest Spawn in this universe, who like was trying to take over this whole universe. Then there's this other dude, Spawn, who's trying not to be in his thrall. But then at the end of this, they will land where Monolith Destiny will. Oh, maybe it didn't show up till 313. At the end of this, they land on Omega Island, which I guess maybe that story only started in 313, which is about where I started. So now this like ties into Spawn 313, which is they're on 350 something now. So it's like this whole mini series is like filling in the gaps, I guess. It's a nice 3-issue series. There are probably 20 words in dialogue on that Monolith page. Yeah, that's good. This doesn't need a lot of even if there's additional dialogue from Todd, additional script. This book doesn't need a lot of dialogue. It's a fight between these two monster spawns, but it was enjoyable. What do we got here? Eric P. Were love checks the 90s version of a no prize? Shocked that McFarlane hasn't produced commemorative love checks to sell. No, they weren't a no prize. They were actual checks.
Yes.
We learned that when cartoonist Kayfabe did a reading of the McFarlane versus
Neil
Gaiman lawsuit. And, the problem was that there was nothing in writing between them about who owned what. And Neil Gaiman kept trying to nail things down, saying, we have to come up with a framework for this to say, and not Todd McFarlane was like, seat of your pants. And occasionally Neil Gaiman would get a big check too. And Todd McFarlane called them love checks. They weren't royalty checks. They weren't incentive checks. They were love checks.
Because I love what you're doing, baby. Keep pumping out more Angelas.
Love checks.
You could do a love check facsimile edition.
Wilson, did you ever get to add more comics to your pull list? I know you were planning on doing that.
I was planning on doing it. I have not done it yet. I find that sometimes the Midtown website, for me, is not easy to navigate when I'm looking for
Okay.
certain things. So it's kind of it's again, for me, it's not an easy interface. So sometimes
Right.
I'll get frustrated with it. It's like, I'll do it later, or I'll do it tomorrow, and completely
Right.
forget about it.
That does happen.
But
Can
I do need
you
to.
just tell them in the store to add it to your pull list?
I haven't really talked to them in the store about stuff because watching how they handle the pull list, it's more like I'm really ordering the books from their warehouse and they ship it to the store because it doesn't look like the stores themselves ever really touch the books. And I got
Okay.
that from just the interaction of when they're
Right.
pulling the books out. They're, the workers seem to be frustrated that sometimes they'll take maybe 3 orders and they
Mm-hmm.
will treat them as 3 individual orders. So they're looking for 3 different piles of books instead of them
Ah,
being condensed. And from everything I could see, I think all the ordering is done outside in their
right.
warehouse location. On a Friday is when I get the email that my books have been purchased. That's when they charge it for me on Friday.
Right.
And then by Monday or Tuesday, I get an email that says your books will be ready on Wednesday
Okay.
for pickup. So I think they keep the pull list as a separate set of files. So the store
So yeah.
orders their set of books for the rack, and then they get a shipment of books. That's what it looks
Okay.
like to me. So
All
I
right.
haven't really had a conversation with the in-store people.
Yeah, that would make sense then. They can't like my regular comic store. He does all the ordering, so I can just say, put this one on my pull list, and they go right into the computer and put it on my pull list.
Right.
But you
And
can't
that's
do
why
that
it's
at
like
that store
I don't
because
have
the store employees have no access to the pull lists. They
right. They
just
only
get whatever
access it
comes in a
uh
bag labeled with your name on it.
right, and then they just scan it and everything is done
Right.
on the computer where it already says that it was paid for and what have you.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, and I guess that's why I do not receive something like a final cutoff because you could
Right.
always just go online, order it, and if you order it before a certain time, it would just get shipped to you or shipped to the store. So the store, I think,
Right.
is just the outside of that network so they can just concentrate on store stuff.
Mm-hmm. Friar Tuck wants to know how's the weather in Portugal?
Sunny. We're
Sunny.
having we're doing 90 on the afternoon now.
That's warm.
I'm currently going through thunderstorms.
Ah.
Yeah, we just had like right before the show there was a big lightning and then it just started pouring. Now it seems to be it's lightly raining and everything's really humid now. New York weather.
But this temperature is good because people will be able to go to cafes and drink lots of beer outside while watching the Soccer European Championship,
Aha.
where we are favorites to win.
Ooh, cool. And I
We
made another
totally are.
comic book cover print this week. I made this one not because not because I love the cover, but this is what I consider to have started my comic book collection. Hulk 200. This is sort of when I over here was the UPC, which I deleted and touched up this guy's chin just because I didn't want a UPC box on it. So as you know,
Nice.
sometimes I just scan in comics that I like the covers of and print out an 11x17 version of it. Came out pretty good.
So
Like
where did you buy that issue?
I don't actually remember. Probably at a 7-Eleven. But I remember this issue because I still have my original one, which is battered. I consider this the start of my collection because I had Hulk 200 and Hulk was my favorite. Then my neighbor had 201, 202, and 203. And that's when I discovered they all had numbers on them and went in a row. And I was 9. And, there was one big meta story going on. So I traded him like 30 comic books that I had. I don't even remember what they were for those 3 comic books. And from then on in, I was aware of numbering. And then the funny thing is with Hulk, I think it was 203 or 204. This is a Sal Buscema issue. And I think 204 was a Herb Trimpe issue. And I was like, whoa, why does the Hulk look different? And that's when I discovered credit boxes. So I was around 9, 10 when I discovered credit boxes too. And and I started following people too, as well as superheroes at 9 or 10. But I figured I'd make one. I actually, like 20 years ago, when Mile High Comics first went online, I bought like a mint condition copy of this and a bunch of other Hulks from around this time when they were like $3 or $4 a piece. So then I was just looking on eBay for a mint condition copy. And I'm like, what am I doing? I've got one on my shelf and I already had it scanned in. So I went and got the scan and made a print of it just for that. Oh, speaking of making things, I also finished painting my original gray Iron Man. And this is how he came out.
Looks like somebody sent it back through time and put it in Mike Allred's ends when he was 5.
He was all gray. I'll have to sign his boot. I think he came out pretty cool. His face looks pretty good with those purple tiger stripes on it. He's got swirls on his side as well as his head.
Did you paint the swirls or did you apply something?
I painted the swirls. This is all just paint. This is all just acrylic paint marker. I've been doing him little by little over the last few weeks, and I finally finished him up this week. So I was like, he looks pretty cool. Art Iron Man.
I like he's a Silver Age Iron Man, and he looked like he walked into like Andy Warhol's pop museum thing going on.
Pop Art Iron
Tony
Man.
There you go.
Andy Warhol car wash.
Got some blue and purple tiger stripes on his boot.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, look, I didn't even put yellow greenish trim on. That I wasn't trying to be too careful about it.
Check out Iron Man's pumps.
Yeah. Iron Man's got cool kicks. I figured I'd show that off having finished it finally this week. And I love swirls, so he's got lots of swirls on.
If we have somebody from Generation Z watching, pumps are things that sneakers used to have, so that we could emulate our favorite NBA players, or pretend to.
Tit Goblin, he's super colorful. I like it. Glad you like it. Thought he came out pretty cool. Pretty cool. Pumps aren't they a woman's shoe too? Don't they call those like flats with a little kitten heel pumps? I don't know why. There's no pump in them.
I believe there is a set of women's shoes called pumps.
Yeah.
I don't know why they would be called that.
Tit Goblin says his armor has Doctor Strange trippy spells embedded in them. Yeah. Don't try casting spells on him. They'll all bounce off that armor.
Next time you gotta try some blacklight paint.
I have to get a black light bulb. I don't have one. Got other colored light bulbs, but not a black one. not a black one. Now let's see another comic I got this week. The Whisper Queen #2, a Black Sand tale. Who was that? Chip Zdarsky, Chris Anka, and Matt Wilson. And this is I don't know what Black Sand is. I got like one other one shot that was a Black Sand tale. But it's got elves and mean magic elves, and they're on some sort of quest to find this one elf woman's daughter. And the Whisper Queen is this super assassin who's after him, who almost just killed him. There he is. There's the son that they were looking for. They found him. Some bandits had him. It's okay. It's a solid B. I don't know how many issues it's running. It's a little choppy. Oh, there's next issue's covers. But this paper has a weird texture on it too. Oh, is there ghosts in the background? Oh, there are. I didn't even notice that. That must be what, if you look, I can barely see that in real life. I don't know if you can see in the background on this black, there's some monsters.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Barely see it. They almost look like fingerprints.
Yeah.
But I can see that there is a different color in there.
Right. That must be some, because I can feel it. The paper isn't smooth. It's got a little texture to it, so it's a little different. Friar Chuck says Steve Ditko meets psychedelic Mike Allred. He looks like he's wearing Crocs. Could be.
No, those are psychedelic pumps.
Psychedelic Crocs. Whoop. Whisper Queen is in the White Trees world of Zdarsky. Yeah, but I've got like a one shot of White Trees. So it's like, how big is the Black Sand? And as far as I know, the Black Sand universe is one issue of White Trees and 2 issues of Whisper Queen. So I'm like, I mean, I might just not know. But I'm like, is it a big world? Are there more comics? I do have that one shot of White Trees, which is why I bought this, because I thought that was okay. Does he have more plans for this world, or is it all just plans now, or were there more comics from Chip? I don't know. And I keep seeing it, thinking it says Black Sod, but it doesn't. It says Black Sand. There's an N in there. Huh. Did you read anything this week, Paolo?
Not this week.
Not. What's on your reading pile? What do you?
I have to go back and I don't know. I have to see what I have to read. I do have a couple of Portuguese graphic novels that I have to read.
I have to read Peter Bagg's Other Lives because I found this on my shelf and I don't think I ever read it. It came out in 2010. But there's something I have to show Paolo. We were talking about comic strip books, and I had one on my shelf that I completely forgot about. The Comics by Colton Waugh.
All right.
This is University Press of Mississippi. This trailblazing survey, first published in 1947, was the pioneer study of the comics. I completely forgot this was even on my shelf. I don't know if I've ever read it. I think someone gave this copy to me from a garage sale. For general readers, devotees alike, this new edition underlines the mass popularity of the comic book and the comic strip in cultural life. Shows the evolution of subgenres of the comics from the Yellow Kid in 1895 through the first decade of modern comic books in the 1940s. So The author, Colton Waugh, an Englishman, was himself a practicing artist in cartooning. Replacing Milton Caniff in 1934, he drew Dickie Dare for 10 years. And in 1945, he began the short-lived strip called Hank about a war veteran. So here's one written about early comic strips in 1947. So that's like within this guy, that's within like 50 years that the, that's Tarzan, I think. Yeah. I don't have to read this. Didn't even know I had this on my shelf. Our Boarding House appeared in 1946. So that was only a year old as this was writing. Toonerville Folks. So I thought that was, like I said, I knew I had this isn't even the one I was thinking of, the Encyclopedia of Comic Strip, but I remember this one. But I don't think I don't know if I ever, or if I read it, I was a kid when I read it. Abby and Slats. Who the hell is Abby and Slats?
Slats. That sounds familiar.
So here, an early survey of comic strips. Oh, there's Henry. I think we were talking about Henry at one point, weren't we?
Yeah. Yep.
Yes.
The one with no words. But I thought it's amazing what you can. Such modern strips as Tuffy. There's a little Tuffy for you. But I'll have to put this into my pile of to be read stuff. The Comics by Colton Waugh. I have never even heard of Colton Waugh, despite the fact that he drew Dick Dare and whatever else he drew. Have you ever heard of Colton Waugh?
Nope.
Does not sound familiar.
Not. His book's been sitting on my shelf for I don't know how long. And I don't know his name. That's weird. Tells you how many books I have. It was a 2-issue series from 2019 plus the recent one-shot. Okay. I had the recent one-shot, but I didn't have the 2-issue series. So it's only 5 issues so far. I don't know how long the Whisper Queen, it must be a mini. Everything's a mini, but I'm not 100% sure. Not 100% sure. After all, I didn't know Love Everlasting would go 15 issues. You never know.
Yep.
So what's on your to-be-read list, Paolo?
I got reprints of some old stuff. I have a couple of Portuguese graphic novels that I didn't get around to reading, and I really need to read those. And I don't know. I do have some things that I haven't touched, and I wanted to reread The Invisibles. I've been putting it off.
Ah, The Invisibles. Yeah, I've never read that one either. Friar Talk. Did Henry have cancer or just a short haircut? I think just a short haircut.
I bet it's related to Charlie Brown.
Henry was bald. Yes, he was. Missing Mars. Related to Charlie Brown. Oh, I saw an interesting TikTok on Charlie Brown's hair and how it's been interpreted in animation. Something I've never thought of before. Right. Because the question was, Charlie Brown only has that's a little squiggle of hair on the front of his head, but he's not actually supposed to be bald. He's like a little short blonde-haired kid. That little squiggle of hair, those little, I think he may have 2 squiggles of hair, just like an indication of hair. So it's like, then they showed some animations where they made him have light blonde hair, but you really couldn't see it. And another, like a 3D animation where he was bald with just a squiggle of hair in the middle, like 3D squiggle of hair, and it just looked so weird. But that was something I saw on TikTok, I think. Someone examining that.
Now, Linus has weird hair too. I mean, he's supposed to have a mop of black hair, but he's drawn with just a few lines here and there, so you can.
They all have hair, but he just indicates it real with a couple of lines. It's weird. 62 Lifty Blues says there's a great YouTube channel, Peter Beard, where he goes through the history of artists from the 1800s to present day. Excellent videos. Oh, cool. Alopecia, perhaps. That's right, Doc. Mind the comics. Finally, at Coelho's Great Gatsby. The PTHC edition includes his fashion studies, which look great, just to my liking. Can't understand why the final product falls far from that, fashion-wise. Charlie Brown is as old as hell compared to other kids. He does. Matter of fact, I never actually looked through.
The ages are kind of inconsistent, but after a while, it looks like Charlie Brown, Charlie and Lucy are in the 4th or 5th grade, and Linus and Sally are a couple of years younger than them.
Oh, look at that. I never actually opened up my hardcover edition. There are some fashion studies in the back. Look at that. Yeah, let me get big. I've been meaning to read it as a whole, but I haven't. That's why I haven't opened it. Yeah, the fashion studies look pretty good. Oh, there's the my gilt edges. Ooh. I paid $80 for those freaking gilt edges, so I'm showing them. Kickstarter. I was just looking at that. I can't even remember who it is now. And another Clover Press book, I think it was, that we were talking about last week, that we hadn't heard of, a European guy or something that had his whole genre of whatever it was, and they finally started the Kickstarter for it, and it was like $80 for this book. I was like, ooh, I don't think I need it that bad. Chaikin vibe from those fashion studies. One of my top of my printer books this week. That's one I wanted a Mr. X cover this week. Let me get it out of here. Let me show it a little better. This is actually a Howard Chaykin Mr. X cover. And I didn't realize it was by. I was looking at the signature down there. I'm like, I think that's Howard Chaykin's signature, but this doesn't look like a sort of normal Howard Chaykin cover. Guess he was really going for the Mr. X designy look. Because
Jared kicked himself out again.
I think he did. Once again.
Howard Chaykin got me kicked out of the stream.
There he is.
I'm back. But I thought that's a pretty neat Howard Chaykin cover that doesn't look like a Howard Chaykin cover. A little different style than normal. They're comics.
This is beginning to become a regular. You know, Howler Mouse always has a phone call, somebody calling him, and you will always kick yourself out of the stream.
Usually when I go over the comments, could one do an old man Charlie Brown nowadays? Say he's like in his 70s. Huh. Well, I like that Aeon Flux blocky art style. Eric P says, I recently got a Mr. X book because of the cover by Mitch O'Connell. Yeah, I love those Mr. X books. They're some of my favorite. As these guys here know, as I bought tons of Mr. X. I don't know, what was that, a year ago now? I'd have to look.
Something like that.
Filled in all the volumes I didn't have. Got an extra hardcover. Bought a CGC. Mr. X Mania. Reread them all. Good stuff. I still have my Mr. X slab out right over there. I also got this week another of these 10th anniversary Submariners.
Mm-hmm.
This one by Bill Everett. I didn't print out a receipt yet for it. I think I once again I paid around $10 for it. Just looking at it, it's probably around a 7.5, like the other ones I got are. Just looking at the cover, not the insides. So, still these other two out too. So I'll have to see how many I need yet out of the 14. I probably got about 8 out of the 14 by now, I think, of the 10th anniversary covers.
Submariners
That's
is
just
usually
the Submariners or the other titles as well?
Just the Submariners.
Submariner
okay.
is usually the superhero comic of the time that most collectors ignore.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Because what goes on in the Submariner comic doesn't really affect the rest of the Marvel universe.
Or the
and
Submariner
Namor
comic.
always, yeah, because Namor always works better as an antagonist. So
Yes.
seeing him being the ruler, unless we have a Tuma, and then somebody would say it's not a Tuma.
Yeah. What did I say? I can't remember where I just read somewhere. Someone referred to Bill Everett as the man who made Martin Goodman his first fortune in comics. Oh yeah,
Yep.
I forgot Submariner was their big hit in the early 40s, along with the Human Torch. Torg, the Antarctic abomination. He is crushing helicopters like they're nothing. Come and get it, Torg. It's time for a fight to the finish, a fight that only one of us can survive.
Torg is tired of being called the Antarctic abomination. His dream is that the abomination becomes the Russian Torg.
There are seals just watching Submariner.
Mm-hmm. The seals, not flamingos.
Seals. Let's see, another comic I got tonight. Boy, were there a lot of this week. This one was real good. The Deviant. This one is the Christmas Noir story. See if I can do this without kicking myself out. Some nice artwork. Very sort of Sean Phillips layouts. So the artist is Joshua Hickson. James Tinian IV is the writer. And this story I liked this issue. The story took an interesting twist. This is the one that there's a comic book writer in this who's gay, has a boyfriend who lives with him, who this one's about. But he's the comic book writer has been interviewing this serial killer who's been in prison for 30 years or something like that. So the first, what issue are we on here? 6. The first 5 issues were mostly about that comic book writer, his life, him interviewing this serial killer. We find out that the serial killer might not actually be guilty. he was railroaded, that he may have been railroaded because he was gay, the serial killer. And now at the end of last issue, we have the writer, the comic book writer, who's also gay, being arrested for being a copycat serial killer. And his boyfriend, of course, in this one is about his boyfriend who's like, are you crazy? He's not a serial killer. Someone's trying to frame him. So this whole issue is the main character of the first 5 issues, boyfriend. First, he's talking to his boyfriend's parents who barely know him, even though he's been with him for 5 years. And they're trying to figure out with the lawyer what kind of deal they should make. And the boyfriend is like, what do you mean make a deal? He's innocent, someone's trying to frame him. And then he goes and tries to talk to the cop and saying, listen, he didn't do this. And the cop's like, we have evidence. Then there was a great line. What is that line that I liked? Oh, he sees the cop. This is the boyfriend who's running around frantically trying to figure out what he should do to get his boyfriend, who he doesn't think is a serial killer, out of jail. So now he's talking to a cop in the bar, and he says, whoever did this is still out there. And the cop goes, maybe so. Then the boyfriend says, so who's supposed to find out? Am I just supposed to wait for Poirot or Batman to show up? Or are you actually going to do something? I just love that line. Am I supposed to wait for Batman or Poirot to show up? So then we get some stuff with a cop where he's not 100% convinced that the writer did it either. So it was a nice issue, a nice kind of shifting of focus. But this has been a good story, nice artwork, and a good piece of writing too. James Tinian IV with Joshua Hickson, with Hassan Atsmain Elhau on letters. But a good issue of that. Jimmy, what do we got here? Did they do a movie in the 90s that was similar to Mr. X comic?
Did they?
I don't think so. Unless you count
I'm
Dark City.
aware of.
The only issue I have
maybe
is 772, but he's continued from an Aquaman issue. Yeah, I don't remember any movie that was like a Mr. X comic. Like I said, unless it's Dark City, that was kind of stylish like that. What's Lefty? More info. Oh, that's this up here. Friar Tuck, Old Charlie Brown is now Curse Wear, Acme Comics. Yeah. Could either be Sky Captain or Dark City. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Dark City. You never read Chris Ware? He's the guy that has all the Charlie Brown problems as an adult. You're right, he does. Jimmy Corrigan. That's what Paolo tells us. Charlie Brown's voice always made him sound like an old man. Friar Tuck, Sky Captain, World of Tomorrow is what I was trying to type. The Dark City might be close to Mr. X, and that the city itself was a star of the movie. And it may have had something like the city was driving people crazy, that's for sure. Not quite psychotecture, but I have to watch Dark City. I haven't watched that one in a long time. Have you guys ever seen Dark City?
I know I saw it when it came out, and it was like I enjoyed it, but I watched it one time, so I have no real memory of it. So it's like I would have to watch it again. As
a Mr. X fan, did you like Terminal City? I never got Terminal City for some reason. Probably because it was a Vertigo book. I just didn't pay much. I've never paid much attention to Vertigo. By the time it was out, it was gone. I've been meaning to pick it up, but I still haven't. I've heard from Mr. X fans say it's sort of not as good as Mr. X, but I don't know. But who started Dark City? Was that Kiefer Sutherland?
I think so.
I think it was Kiefer Sutherland. And the basic plot was they lived in this city, but something was wrong. And like I don't think it was a time loop, but like there was something wrong with, and he eventually he eventually found himself for what trying to figure out what was wrong with the city or what was going on, and he eventually found himself trying to make it to the edge of the city, and it turned out it was like a
Right.
city in a bottle or something.
Like an experiment or something, because it was also always night.
Yeah, there's something weird going. He was trying to figure out why this city was so weird. Eric P says Dark City had Kiefer Rufus Sewell was the star. Oh, okay. Yeah, it's been a long time. That's one of those movies I always meant to rewatch but never have. Because some movies. What was that?
And I never read Mr. X. I know I bought an issue thinking it had something to do with Professor X, but it was like, this is not what I thought the book would be about. I thought it was like some sort of. There's an X. They were both bald, and I thought it might have been one of those weird, artsy kind of rendition of Professor X, like when he was younger. So I thought they were just going for a whole different design style. And it's like, this is not the book I thought it was. And I was just, pulling them off the rack, and I grabbed an issue thinking, oh, must be a Professor X thing. And it's like, oh, check it out. It's like, this is not Professor X. This is not even a Marvel book.
Here's Eric P telling us it's a city on a spaceship. Okay, this wasn't just in a bottle. That's funny. And it was one of those, endings where the second time you watch the movie, it's a different movie. But I still haven't watched it a second time. Sort of like Fight Club. Like once you the second time through, Fight Club is a different movie.
There's an Argentinian comic called The City. It was actually serialized in an Italian magazine in the late 80s and early 90s. And it's a city that goes on forever. It's sparsely populated, and if you move somewhere in the to another part of the city, the same rules may no longer apply regarding physics, time of day, how many people there are, which usually there aren't a lot. There aren't that many. You can go for days without running into somebody else because the city is just there.
Let's see. Eric P's got more about Dark City. It's a film I like a lot. I recall seeing The Matrix and thinking, Dark City did this a year ago. Dark City. You have to check that out again. Let's see. Another comic I got this week. Chris Cliff Rathburn, 1 of 4, Remote Space. Cliff Rathburn, I think he did some stuff on Invincible, and he's been the one who's been coloring The Walking Dead for the colored version, but he's writing and drawing this one. And the first issue was just okay. There was a lot of exposition to set this up, but I think I'll get the other 3 issues because I liked it enough, and I liked the art a lot. Like these weird things. And he took like the first, let's see here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 or so pages just setting up this world, which has something to do with, at some point, humanity split off into 2 groups because the Earth was getting unlivable. Like the rich technological group went off into space, and the poor people who were stuck on Earth started mutating themselves so they could survive on Earth. And it made these 2 separate groups of human beings. And now all the people on Earth, and like the people who went off into space are like half robot now too. It's like the people on Earth are half monster, and the people up in space are half robot. And now the people on Earth need the help of some renegade half robot ones to survive, because they need like unpure DNA. It was really a strange story, but
This just
kind
gave
of
me an
interesting.
excellent idea for the Star Trek The Time Machine crossover. The Borg versus the Morlocks.
There we go. That kind of sounds like it. But I liked the ambition. I don't think it quite works, but it's only a 4-issue mini.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to see how it turns out, because like I said, I like his ambition. And I like the fact that he's really kind of stretching him. Because like I said, I don't know if he's ever done anything on his own before. Because like I said, I know him from, I think, Invincible and like I said, The Walking Dead colorist. So I think he actually drew some issues of Invincible when the regular guy wasn't there. So like I said, I like his enthusiasm and ambition, so I'm going to stick with it. Sometimes that's enough. Like what was that other book that I was buying? Whose brother was it? The one I was buying last that I wasn't sure if it was amateur on purpose or by accident.
Yeah, the bit around this.
I can't remember whose brother, but it was someone. I was like, but sort of. This one is definitely way more professional looking than that. But like I said, I liked the enthusiasm on that one. I'm liking the enthusiasm and ambition on this one, so I'll give it 4 issues. No problem. Do you guys ever do that? Well, Paolo wouldn't have a chance to, since he only gets graphic novels over there. But have you ever bought a series, Wilson, just because you like the ambition and enthusiasm, even though it might not be the best? The results might not be the best, but the enthusiasm is.
Yeah, I can't think of a title, but I know I've bought books hoping it would be one thing and it ended up being something else.
Mm-hmm.
Like there was a Mighty Mouse book that came out, and I was so excited for it because one of those titles that I always wanted to be better than it ever really could be, or at least the ones that I've read growing up. I think what was out previous and what was out during maybe the Dell age or whatever was whoever was publishing them way back when it
Mm-hmm.
had that solid art style, that solid cartoony animal art style. When Marvel was doing it in the 90s, it was too it was too stylized to that 90s cartoon, which I didn't really like. I like the Terry Toons type of stuff. So when it was being drawn to the Terry Toons style, again, the older books like Terry Toons with Mighty Mouse in it, when Dynamite put it out, I had high hopes for it, and it was just such a disappointing story as well as a disappointing artwork. And I bought it. I'm glad I bought the trade paperback instead of individually. I did
Mm-hmm.
get like the first issue individually, but I didn't read it. I ended up waiting for trade. I got the trade, completely disappointed in it, thinking it was going to be better than what it was, and it just was. It was a product of its time, and it felt like, oh, someone had a script from the movie that was never made, so they decided to make a comic book out of it, and it was just as bad as it would have been as a movie. So I could applaud them for making a. I could say that they probably made an exact adaptation of a movie that probably would have been bad.
That's
So
a
for me,
different genre. That's books you hope will be good that just aren't.
Yeah.
Well,
So,
I
but
kind
other
of went
than
through
that,
that.
I don't know if I.
I kind of went through that with the Filth.
The
'Cause
Filth,
yeah, by Grant Morrison.
right?
'Cause I bought the whole thing in the collected edition, but I kept reading and expecting a payoff, and it never arrived.
Yeah, that's why I always call. For me, Grant Morrison never pays off. But I call him the master of the first issue because he sets things up beautifully, but he never has an ending in mind. So he sets up all these interesting premises and questions and stuff. But then I know for a fact he never has an ending in mind because I've talked to some of his editors. And he doesn't usually have an ending in mind. And sometimes that's a big letdown. Like The Filth was one. I remember reading the first issue of The Filth and going, this is another good Grant Morrison first issue. I know it's not going to end well. And then I didn't read anymore. And I heard from people it didn't end well. Let's see. SBPT, good evening. Yes, I did Scarlet by Bendis and Malieve. I really thought it had the potential to be the 21st Century Watchmen. That's one he bought because he liked the enthusiasm and ambition. I did not read that one just because I'm not a Bendis fan. The Bakshi Mighty Mouse cartoon got canceled after he was snorting flowers in it. He did it with the Ren and Stimpy guy who is now, I remember that 62 Lefty Blues. It was like, oh no, he's sniffing cocaine to get his powers. It's like,
Yep.
okay.
They just was not, again, a great IP just being done completely wrong.
SBPT, at last someone thinks alike about Morrison. Yeah, that's what he's the master of the first issue. Just like, I think the last Morrison thing I got, as a reader, I'm not interested in endings. Strange, I know. Not interested in endings.
Funny. I'm not interested in beginnings, or at least I don't like origin stories. I think they're boring.
Oh, yeah. I agree with you there because origin stories are all the same. I wasn't this thing, something happened, and now I'm this thing. That's every origin story ever.
Yeah, but the character is not the character yet, so
yeah,
it's not there for me to like.
Yeah, and we've watched enough movies and shows. It's just the cycles are too many times in between. There's nothing new. I always joked around, if I have to see Batman's parents die once again, I'm going to become Batman.
Yeah.
Too many times I've been seeing it.
Yeah, and Hollywood's obsession with adapting superheroes as the origin story. We don't.
Yeah.
I mean, can you guys imagine if every cop movie was the guy's first mission after getting out of the academy?
By the way, I don't think I've ever heard anyone say they're not interested in endings. Almost everybody wants them to stick the landing, so that's new.
Or at least end that story. You could continue.
Yeah. Right. Jack says, hopefully I'm not saying someone who might set someone off, but Warren Ellis always entertained me writing wise. Yeah, I like Warren Ellis in general. I like his indie stuff a lot better than his corporate stuff.
They have a book of his that most people say it's not very good, but I like it. It's fun. It's a fun read. Ignition City. It's an alternate world where Earth colonized Mars, and he has stand-ins for Flash Gordon and then there and a few other rocket spaceship characters from the 50s and 60s.
Video Homicide is stopping by to say, hey, have a good show, fellas. Video Homicide also, he does a live show Friday nights usually. So stop by his channel if you get a chance. Our Canadian friend who's into comics and horror movies, and he draws his own zines now. I don't forget his zines. I still haven't gotten them. SBP, mind the comments. I can relate. Sometimes stories are so good, the ending just ruins it all. Well, that's a bad ending. I mean, I think that's it. Right. Wasn't there a Japanese cartoon that smoked something to get his superpowers? I don't know about that one. You guys know that one?
No.
It doesn't sound familiar.
No, not to me.
I usually like to ruffle the feathers of fans of Japanese animation, saying anime is degeneracy.
Want to do a Reed, Rip, and Slab?
Sure.
Pick a decade. Wilson, pick a decade.
Let's
And
do the 70s.
the
Since
70s.
you showed that Submariner cover.
Let's see what I got in the 70s. 1976 July, I clicked on. That was right about when that Hulk came out. My Hulk 200. What was that? June 76.
I was 5.
Let me share my screen. And we have got Marvel 2-in-1 number 20, Superman 304, and Nova number 2. Not the creme de la creme of the 70s, some off books. Well, Superman isn't really an off book, but I wouldn't call it the creme de la creme of the 70s.
Right.
Jack Kirby, Frank Giacoia.
Big names, though.
Yeah. John Buscema, Frank Giacoia, and Robert Oxner on the covers.
Oxner was working at Timely in the mid-40s.
Wow.
He did the humor books.
Yeah, I don't recognize his name as a Superman artist in the 70s. I was surprised to see his name credited to that one. So I was like, Marvel 2-in-1 Thing in the Liberty Legion. That one's a World War. Is that a World War II story, or did someone go back in time?
Yeah, went back in time.
And Nova, First Night of the Condor.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe the only one, because I don't remember the Condor.
I had that one. I still don't remember it. Is that Powerhouse and the Condor?
Yeah. Most of Nova's villains are kind of forgotten, except for the Sphinx.
Yeah, there's a super villain team. Hey, and is that Atuma in the Liberty Legion?
That's not Atuma. It's U-Man.
U-Man, okay.
U-boat, you get it? U-boat, U-Man.
Undersea Man.
Is a Nazi Atlantean.
Nazi Atlantean.
That doesn't even look like Master Man. What the? Master Man is supposed to be blonde. That guy has brown hair.
So hard to choose, because I think any one of them is going to be a disappointing read. So I would slab. I think I would slab Superman, so I can read The Thing and Liberty Legion, because I've always enjoyed the stories with The Thing. So that being, I would have to rip Nova straight down the center to separate Nova from Condor. And the only reason why I want to slab Superman is because he's being punched out by the kid.
And Eric P. says, speaking of Reed, Rip, and Slab, my comic shop had a copy of Archie Veronica book with the flamingos for sale this past week. It was sold in 2 minutes. Wow. I've looked at that one on eBay. It goes for anywhere from $25 to $50.
I'm gonna read Superman. I mean, it's quite obvious that the kid's a youthful clone of Lex Luthor or whatever.
He just wants to be right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm going to slab Marvel 2-in-1 and rip Nova. I have the essential with Nova. So.
Let's see. Tit Goblin.
I think I would
read Nova, slab the Thing, and rip Superman and Dolphin the Playground slide.
You notice how half of the kids are cheering for the other one to beat up Superman, and the other ones don't care. They're just in the slide.
And I would replace the guy punching this thing with a dolphin.
Master Man.
Mm-hmm.
Master Man will be now Master Dolphin. And the flamingos, you know what? That Thing Liberty Legion cover doesn't have enough characters on it, so we're going to put the flamingos in the foreground, watching everything that's happening.
I'm going to dolphin Superman being punched. So the kid is punching a dolphin. After all, if I think he's Lex Luthor, he should be punching a dolphin. And the flamingo, I'm going to put the flamingos on Condor's wings.
I was going to put the flamingo on the edge of the building below Condor, looking up at the whole thing. Let's see. Mind the Comic says, out of every long runs I've read, I think I've only stayed to the end with Why the Last Man. Most other stuff I lose interest just before. I'm much more into premises. In my defense, nothing ever ends. That's why you got to buy indie books. They all end.
Unless they get canceled or the author loses interest.
Yeah. Eric P. He's going to read Nova, slab Marvel 2-in-1, which I have a copy of, and rip Superman. Dolphin the Condor, and have the flamingos watching Superman get punched by the kid. And SPPT, he's going to slab Superman, take that bully, Kal-El. Read Nova, 100% 70s material. And the Thing has to be ripped. First Morrison, now Kirby. I'm asking for an expelling. Ripping a Kirby couple.
Yeah. You're fired.
Being that I'm a 70s Marvel kid, I'm going to have to rip Superman. No doubt. And I've read both that Marvel 2-in-1 and that Nova. I have zero memory of either of them. But I'll slab the Kirby cover and read that boring ass Nova. And Dolphin the kid on the slide. Let's see. Tit Goblin says, I was watching behind the scenes of a Guns N' Roses video, and Axl Rose demanded the actress he just broke up with in the video get replaced with dolphins. The woman gets replaced by a dolphin again. Flamingos as the Liberty Legion. Now, the flamingos don't replace anything. They can stand on the Liberty Legion's heads.
Or you can have them in between.
The dolphin replaces the flamingos. Just hang out. Those are our crazy rules.
Yeah, the flamingos can stay. You can put the flamingos between Wizard and Miss America as chaperones. They're not married yet.
Eric P says, I'm just noticing the kid punching Superman is dressed in Aquaman colors.
Yeah, but he has Lex Luthor's eyebrows. That's why I think he's Lex Luthor.
And if I were to lose that gorgeous head of blonde hair, I'd be a supervillain too.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know, Thomas, we had a discussion once. Because, I always found, Lex Luthor's origin pretty ridiculous. That he became a villain because Superman spilled some chemicals on him and made him go bald. But then I can remember one day, you of course remember Johnny and Thomas in the bullpen.
Right.
One day, and Johnny and Thomas were two guys who worked in the bullpen. They were friends from school. They knew each other a long time. And one day I was like, you know what? And Thomas was funny too, because he was one of these superhero fans who just always wanted superpowers. Of course, we all always wanted superpowers. That's nothing new. But Thomas was like, he was really upset that he didn't get superpowers. And I said to myself, you know what? If his friend Johnny ever one day got superpowers, I swear Thomas would turn into Lex Luthor. He'd be so mad that Johnny got superpowers and not him that he'd turn into Lex Luthor. I'm like, suddenly I understand that origin. Tit Coblin put a bunch of art wasps on the recess playground stinging those bratty kids. That's where the art wasps go. The ones from my jacket. Now I think 70s comics make me the most nostalgic because this is what I was reading as a kid. Like I said, even Marvel 2-in-1, which I didn't think was very, but I was glad to see the Liberty Legion in this because I was an Invaders fan. And the Liberty Legion came out of the Invaders. Didn't they also have like the one issue of Marvel Premiere or something?
They have 2 issues of Marvel Premiere, which are a crossover with the Invaders those 2 months.
Ah, okay. I remember I actually read. I was just looking at are the kids on the ground cheering for the other kid or waving to Superman? I think they're cheering for the other kid.
Yeah.
To like beat up that old dude. I was just looking at the price of the Invaders Omnibus for some reason, which on Amazon is $70. Not bad.
Mhm.
Not that I'm getting it anytime soon or anytime. As much as I was an Invaders fan as a kid, I don't think I have any real reason to reread them all in an omnibus.
When I bet that the actual reason is that Superman went to that school to do an anti-smoking speech, and the kids were all pissed off because he took all of their cigarettes away.
Ah. Eric
Because
P. says, I got
still
that Marvel
smoke.
2-in-1 off the $3 spinner rack at my LCS and Reddit. I just recall it was a fun issue.
Kids still smoked cigarettes on the playground in the 1970s.
They did. No doubt about it. What I will, what I will never be able to get like modern kids to understand is smoking in cars in the 70s. It's like grown-ups used to, I remember being a kid and being like car sick because grown-ups would smoke in enclosed cars in the winter in the 70s. Now, no one in my family actually smoked, so every now and then I'd run into it. I'd be like, oh. Like they wouldn't even crack a window and hang the cigarette out like they learned to do over the years. They were like, you were a kid in the 70s going somewhere with a smoker, they were just filling up the car with smoke. Like,
well, here's another one that's hard to explain to the kids. Elevators used to be so slow that smokers did not want to wait until they went outside to light their first cigarette of the day.
Yeah. Though I just saw, I didn't realize this, speaking of elevators. The reason there used to be elevator operators, according to what I just read, I haven't verified this, is because in the beginning, people were afraid to go on elevators. So they would just put someone in there to operate the elevator to show people that it was safe. And they would use the elevators. I'd never heard that before. I've not verified it with a second source, but I thought that was an interesting idea.
I thought it was because they didn't have switches.
No, they did. If you look at the early, they didn't have the push buttons,
right.
But they had different type of. But still, a person could do it. I think, but I think it was to make people feel safe.
After watching other types of documentaries and historical shows, which aren't exactly historical, but I've seen how the time period, how people wouldn't want to touch the telephones, electricity in the house for the first time. Seems like no, we trust the gas. We don't trust the electricity. And I've seen enough like movies, TV shows, and a few documentaries where you had to convince people about using a lot of this technology at the time. You know, people joke around now about the G5 wires and whatnot, but they were scared of the telephone wires for a long time. I've seen like TikToks and stuff like that where people had found old newspaper articles where they were just basically saying the same things. This is what's going to happen with the electric telephone and all those wires above us. Those wires are going to send out signals that could destroy you. It's like there's the same propaganda we're getting now about G5.
Yeah. People are the same. Let's see, SBPT. Yesterday, tried to see Superman Returns. I only lasted to Luthor's origin. A toupee for Odin's sake. Titka, my grandmother and her old bingo friends didn't go on escalators or elevators. Islanders were really superstitious and afraid of modern change. Wow.
Yeah, my grandma never learned how to use an escalator.
62 Lefty Blues watched Superman Returns and fast forward, and it was still boring. But not boring. What was that, Wilson?
No, I was going to say the little elevator story I heard about was that Steve Ditko didn't take elevators.
Oh, okay.
He walked up and down.
I
and
have no idea.
He did it all his life, and I heard the story came from one of the guys who used to work at Valiant, where it's like he would just not wait for the elevator; he would just walk up. And one time he ended up walking down with an artist, and he's like, "I'll walk down with you." They walked down, and Ditko was like, "Oh, I forgot something," and he ran right back into the building, right back up like it was nothing. It was just up and down. He didn't take elevators. Yeah, I couldn't confirm that story, but it was like it was at least one person from Valiant said that's what he used to do.
Eric P. said just what I said. Taking the stairs keeps a lot of people fit.
Oh, yeah.
The new issue of Torpedo, 1972. Love the artwork in this. But, man, the story is rough and brutal at times. In this particular issue, Torpedo gets paid to off a crooked cop. So this whole thing is him trying to off a crooked cop. Things don't quite go well. And then the crazy thing is, the crooked cop gets the drop on him. And so the crooked cop wants Torpedo to jump out the 4-story window. That's how he's going to kill him. Of course, Torpedo gets the drop back on the guy, the crooked cop, and makes him jump out the 4-story window. So there's this one particularly brutal scene where the crooked cop is still alive down the bottom after the 4-story drop. And there's a guy trying to help out the crooked cop. Here he is. There's the guy trying to help out the crooked cop. And Torpedo's like, "Don't worry, I'm a doctor. Give me your tie." And then starts to strangle the crooked cop with the guy's tie. And the guy is like, that doesn't seem like you're trying to save him. And Torpedo's like, "Who's the doctor here?"
What a great line.
And the scene is just nuts. Then I think he ends up strangling the guy, too. The guy goes to call the cops. And then he ends up strangling the guy, too, I think, in the phone booth. So it's just like, oh, my goodness. He's just leaving bodies behind. But another brutal, harsh issue of Torpedo with terrific art. I don't even know how to describe this book. It's just like, oof. Ooh, that's rough. Oh. Hazar is here. Good morning. 8 a.m. here in Malaysia. Superman returns. Such a waste of Stacey's Luthor. Eric P. The artwork has Sandman Mystery Theater feel to it. I think it's mostly the coloring. I could see that. Yeah. Eric Titgoblin. How long do you think it would take to get up on a super new high skyscraper, elevator, and walking? I have no idea. Walk 100 flights? Whew, that'll take all afternoon.
Oh, yeah.
Azar says, love Torpedo. Bought a few hardcover collections because of Toth and Burnett art. Burnett, is he still around doing comics? I don't know. Paolo, is he still?
Burnett is not. Sanchez Abuli is still writing the new Torpedo stories. Sanchez Abuli regularly shows up in comic book conventions in Portugal and Spain.
Uh-huh.
I do have my 2 volumes of the IDW series signed by him. I think he was surprised that why would I bring him the English language editions when Torpedo was published in Portugal.
62 Lefty Blues. I just picked up Victor Kalavachev's Blue Estate in hardcover from Image back in 2014. I remember that one. It had nice covers, but I never read it. Looks like they made a video game out of it too. I never heard of it, and the artwork is. I remember that having good covers, but Gangster Story. Okay, but I don't think I may have picked up one issue of it. I'd have to check. But matter of fact, let me check see if it's in my database. Do I have anything named Blue? I may have never picked an issue, but the covers always caught my eye. Let's see, Blue Lily. No, I'd never picked up an issue of it.
Oh, it's Jordi Bernet's birthday. He turned 80 today.
Ah, okay. Happy birthday, Jordi.
He hasn't done anything in a while. I think he's retired for real.
Yeah, well, if he's 80, I got to figure it's
okay. So the last thing he did on a regular basis was apparently Jonah Hex.
Oh, that's right. Jimmy got him to do some stuff on that.
Yeah, because he translated Torpedo to English.
Jimmy Palmiotti. I remember him being very thrilled to be working with him.
Yeah, before that, the last thing he did on what?
That must be 15 years ago now. That Jonah Hex came out. Wow, time flies.
Yeah, and before that, the last thing he did on a regular basis was a series for Penthouse Comics, but published in Europe. Chica Dum Dum.
62 Lefty Blues says the covers sell it. Blue Estate. Like I remember really liking the cover. I may even have downloaded the covers somewhere. I'm gonna have to look. Those were some cool issues of Jonah Hex. They were. I have a bunch of those Jonah Hex ones. Let's see, another thing I got this week. Plastic Death and Dolls. This is by the team of Story, Doug Wagner, art and cover, Daniel Hilliard, Michelle Madsen, color, Ed Dukeshire, letters. And this is the third series I bought by them. I bought another one called Vinyl and another one called Plush. And the original series they did, which I never got, was just called Plastic. This is Plastic Death and Dolls. So I want to track down Plastic. And they're usually these crazy books about serial killers. And that's what this one is. We get, there's lots of blood. Here he is cutting off some guy's head with a hacksaw. So, serial killer goofiness. I mean, that's what most of the, I think it was, Vinyl was the first one I picked up. And that one was like a cult versus a serial killer with an FBI agent caught in the middle. And Plush was about a bunch of corrupt hillbilly sheriff department versus a group of killer furries. So these guys come up with some nutty comics. Some nutty comics. And I got to say, there was a lot of good comics out there. I got 14 comics this week, and not one of them was really a dud. They were all pretty good. They were all at least a B. So whenever I hear people say there's no comics are no good today, I'm like, you're just not reading any comics. As we've discussed many times before.
Yes. They don't want to
or
read
they
other
believe
comics.
they only believe Marvel and DC are the only ones that exist.
If they even read those. I mean, it's a long shot that they even read those.
True, very true.
What they're complaining about is Marvel and DC, but of course. Oh, and here's something interesting I got this week. that my comic shop owner just gave to me. He must have ordered some. These are Canadian stamps. First day issue Canadian stamps. This one is Chester Brown and Louis Riel.
Oh.
This one, first day issue, Clyde Fans and Seth Gregory Gallant. There's a little thing on the back about him. And here is the actual book of, there was two other people who got the stamps. And the first is, let me see here, Michael Rabagliati, Rabagliati, Rabagliati. Rabagliati. Okay.
Yeah.
He
The
does.
Chiefs
I
got
actually
silent.
have some of his stuff. He does the what's his name? Paul in Quebec, and he has Paul in this place, Paul in that place. He got and the other one is cousins. They are Jillian Tamaki and Mariko Tamaki, and those two cousins did a book called This One Summer, which I think is on my wish list. I don't think I ever got it. I think it's on my wish list though. So those are 4 Canadian cartoonists who got stamps. And my LC last week he told me I got some stuff for you next week, just for free. Canadian stamps. I was like, cool. I'm gonna take some photo corners and mount these in the books so they stay with the books.
Nice.
Louis Riel and Clyde Fans. That's my plan. But I thought that was kind of cool.
Yeah.
Canadian stamps. 62 left. The Boys season 4 first 3 shows dropped on Prime yesterday, and they are wild. Yeah, I'll check those out. I've been watching that.
Yeah, I didn't know they dropped already. So I'll go on my
I knew they
list
did,
of
but I haven't
shows
gotten
to
around
watch.
to it. Have you read The Boys?
I did not read The Boys. The only thing I know about The Boys is I saw issues of it when it first came out.
Right.
But for me at that time period, I did not like deconstruction of superheroes to be this over the top type of thing. I'm enjoying the TV show. I am
Right.
enjoying that. But when the book came out, to me at that time period, I was like, no, I felt like too many books were out there like that. Where it was like,
I
I
felt
just don't
exactly
like
the
that.
same way. That's
Yeah,
exactly. I was like, oh my god, more over the top deconstructed superheroes. I'm kind of tired of it. But then
especially because all of that over the top deconstruction of superheroes was being done by Garth Ennis. It was always the Garth Ennis book.
So I
Right,
think I
exactly.
may have read the first issue, but then like a few years later, I went back and read them all digitally and enjoyed the series.
Right. I may have picked up the first issue where it was like,
Yeah.
oh, okay, it's one of these books, and I think to me it was like, oh, this is like that martial law book that came out way back then, and it was like kind of the same thing. I did not need to look at superheroes' naughty bits and superheroes doing naughty stuff. For me, it was like, this is again not really reading the story and getting into the story. To me, it was
I
like,
felt the
this is
same way.
yeah, this to me was like, this is the lowest hanging fruit that people do when they get into comics. They're either going to do a horror book or they're going to be doing a deconstruction of something that everyone loves, but they're going to change it because they actually hate superheroes. So I didn't even bother. And that was my thought process at the time.
Right.
But since then, watched the TV show and it's like, TV show is pretty good.
Yeah. I actually read them. I think I read them all just before the TV show. Like I said, I don't have any actual books. I read it digitally, but I enjoyed it. I gotta say, because I wasn't in that, because I hadn't read deconstruction of superheroes in a decade.
Right.
When the boys came out, I had read, 6 books within the last couple of years that were all about the deconstruction of superheroes. Been there, done that. Mm-hmm. What do we say here? 60 left to lose. I met Garth Ennis last year and talked to him about how he's asleep with all those crazy stories in his head. He said you would not believe it. Everyone knows Garth doesn't like superheroes. Yes, but he does superhero comics. That's what I was kind of tired of.
The thing is, it's quite obvious that he's telling people, stop hiring me to do superhero comics. And they kept hiring him. I mean, Warren Ellis at the time, he was also, I'm tired of doing superheroes. And then somebody offered him money. Oh, yeah, let's do another superhero book.
I'll run through my last 5 quickly before we run out of time. Napalm Lullaby, number 4. I'm still not sure if I really like this one or what it's really about. It's just so weird. It's like this weird Superman took over the world and started a cult story. And these 2 siblings are trying to stop the cult that took over the world. But they've got these powers that are vague and amorphous. And sometimes they see the future and sometimes they don't. And I'm just like, this thing is just weird. But I don't know if it's on my pull list or not. I don't know if I decided after 3 to get another issue 4 or put it on my pull list. Either way. And here's another Clover Press book, Armored, issue number 1. I decided I like the Nick Pitera cover. And this one is about, this one's kind of, I think, is this a teen book? It might be somewhere around there. About a kid who was adopted, but their real son died falling off this tower when a ghost pushed him off. And he went into the tower and found this magical armor. I don't think it was solid, but I just don't think that one. Maybe I'll get another issue. Maybe I won't. We'll have to see. Beto Hernandez, Psychodrama Illustrated. And this is the one that, the one character, what was her name, flew out of my head. Luba's daughter, who I can't remember. She's an actress. And this one he does graphic novel adaptations of the fake movies she starred in his comic book world. Fritz is the actress. Okay. And what's weird about this one is, since they reprint these in those smaller hardcovers, we've got this right here, and then a really weird comic strip down the bottom, which has nothing to do with this story up here, which is the adaptation of the... As a matter of fact, the comic strip was all about Earthers and space aliens and killing each other, and Venusians don't like Earthlings, and Earthlings are throwing each other out of the air dock, and it's just nuts. It was a nutty comic strip, but a lot of fun. So, I mean, if you like Beto Hernandez, you'll like this. It's always good. Let's see. Ain't No Grave. This is the one by Scotty Young and Jorge Corona. And this one it's only like a 4 or 5 issue mini. And I liked The Thing You Love in the Dark or whatever it was that they did before. This one hasn't quite grabbed me yet. It's about an outlaw in the Old West, a woman who's going to hell to kill death so she can save her child. I'm sticking with it because it's only 4 or 5 issues, but it hasn't really grabbed me, but it's good. Good, but hasn't really grabbed me. The final one, this is the one I've had a subscription to, but there's no reason to have a subscription. They just sent, my subscription ran out. This is the last issue. Now I'm just going to put it on my pull list because the subscription went from $30 to $40. It's a $6 comic book. So 5 issues, $30 was the same cover price. Now it's $40, which I knew they had to raise it because they were going to be losing money mailing all these out, however many they were mailing. And this was the one that, if you remember, when I first since I was one of the first 200 people to get the subscription, I got all 5 covers for the first issue. None of that's going on now with the second subscription, so I'll just put it on my pull list. But this one is creepy as hell. Holy cow, is it creepy. And the whole thing, it's just got this creepy artwork. And there's this sickness that makes people see creepy things. And then I think the last person who had it was a woman who killed her whole family. So now we've got a doctor trying to figure out why this woman killed her whole family. He's been doing autopsy on her. And this new kid who this whatever sickness is makes you see somebody hanging out with you. And you see all these creepy giant bugs and stuff all around. He can't figure out what's going on. So now the doctor also figured out this might be some disease because he managed to track down a few other people who thought a man was following them and did creepy things and died and stuff like this. This one's really hard to describe because it's not like things just happen. It's not like there's an act one, act. There's no like structure to it like a normal story. It's just, it switches from scene to scene and all these things happen and you learn more about what's happening as time goes by. So really interesting one. Let's see, the sickness is coming out with a TPB and then he starts the second series. Yeah, that's the, and it's by Jenny Ha is the artist. Jenny Cha, C-H-A-L. And Nadler is the writer. Art, Jenny Cha. Story and script, Jen Cha, not Jenny. Jen Cha. Lonnie Nadler is the other. And Hassan Atsmain Elhau is the letterer. But I've been enjoying this. They're the same team who did a book called Black Stars Above, which was very creepy too. So it's really hard to describe how creepy that thing is. Let's see, I need to put Psychodrama Illustrated on my pull list as I keep picking up shelf copies from my LCS. You're lucky that your LCS has shelf copies. Derek Robertson doesn't work for me. Far too long following the Ennis Dillon dynamic duo. I'm okay with Derek Robertson. 60, he was the first with the Punisher kills the Marvel Universe. Now everyone does it. Oh, that's
the first one was Pat Mills with martial law.
We talk about deconstruction. Who's done reconstruction of superhero? Few people have.
James Robinson.
See. What was that?
James Robinson.
James Robinson. Alan Moore in the 90s. He's been trying to reconstruct superheroes for decades.
Mm-hmm.
Since he deconstructed them with the Watchmen and made
Alex
everybody
Ross.
all serious.
Alex Ross.
Alex Ross. Yep, there's another one I'd say. Let's see, who else can we think of? Maybe Michael Allred? I don't know if he's really consciously trying to reconstruct superheroes or he just does what he likes.
I think he just does what he likes.
Yeah.
Because his universe is a bit offbeat.
Yeah. Maybe. Kurt Busiek, there was a good one. Mark Waid. Yeah, I would say Kurt Busiek would definitely be a contender for reconstructing superhero. I haven't read Mark Waid in a while. I'm not sure.
I'm not sure you should really count. I mean, Kingdom Come was Mark Waid's baby. Was Alex Ross's baby, not Mark Waid's. He was writing Superman.
He could ride his coattails.
Yeah. Grant Morrison. No, seriously, JLA.
Yeah, he did that for that. But that wasn't really hard.
No. I mean, the idea was basic. I mean, why don't we just do JLA with the guys everyone likes?
That's what everyone wanted to do.
Yeah.
But didn't have the power to get it done. And the reason that doesn't get done very often is because the editors who were in charge of those characters didn't want them in the JLA. I don't know how much of that is happening now. I don't think there's the same thing. But I don't know. I couldn't tell you who's in the JLA. I think that they usually have the big three in the JLA these days, don't they? Because the whole editors looking out for characters doesn't happen as much.
Yeah, especially because they want to do the movies.
Yeah, they want to do the movies, right?
And they always want them to be with the big three.
Sleepy Reader says, I think Busiek still gently deconstructs in an Astro City. Yeah, I think I agree with you there.
Astro City is kind of an ode to superheroes. I don't see deconstruction there. The idea around Astro City is that the superhero is to be embraced.
I think he is, but sometimes I think there's little things going on. Sometimes, maybe.
There's a
I
certain
think he goes through
humanity
the
aspect.
cycles of the stories.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Wait, is reconstructing in Current World's Finest? I have not read Current World's Finest. Tonight flew.
Yeah.
Glad we could keep you busy and having a good time. Give you another look at psychedelic Iron Man to get you trippy. I got to put him back in the box and see how he looks in the box. Psychedelic Iron Man. I got to figure out what to do with him now. I actually might take some of those pops I do and bring them to Mocha Fest next year and have the students sell them with their artwork. That's what, I haven't painted a pop in a while because I've been thinking about this Iron Man, but I still have some around to paint. I even wanted to like make sticker labels for like the front of the pops or Iron Man, like maybe say Pop Art Pop or something. I haven't done that yet. I was
Got to
spending.
mock up like.
What was that?
I say you got to mock up. You got to mock up one of those Archie like comic books where from the pop art one, and just replace all the artwork with the pops and the Iron Man.
There we go. Tit Goblin, can we see those texture stamps you talked about a while back, Jared? Oh, hold on. Have a good night, Eric P. Gotta run. If you want to see it, I was actually using all my textures that I made. I think I was writing about on my blog. I think I showed these before on Friday night. I was actually just using these because I was unhappy with my Gatsby book so far. And I realized the reason I was unhappy was because the design was bleh. So I actually pulled out my book of. I made all these textures over the last couple of years and have them all scanned. So I was using these textures, colorizing them and using them in the design. But these, have you ever seen these? Where are they? These are sort of just stamps that you stick in a stamp pad. And there's nothing but texture on them. And in the 90s, I started using some of these like in the background for backgrounds of comic book stuff. Like, and I like draw with them to make textures in the background. Then I had some that was just a design. Then I had some that like, this is a famous painting, Luncheon on the Boating Party stamp. And then what else do we have? Oh, this is the Van Gogh, his room stamp. So I was using those to make these textures, and like some of them I would like, let's see which one. Oh, like this one, I would draw with the textures. Sometimes you get big blob inks, sometimes you wouldn't. I think this one was drawn with just little dabs of the texture. So that's what he was looking to see, those texture stamps. But yeah, I liked the I'm liking how the design of the Gatsby book is going now that I'm actually designing it.
Right.
Because I just kind of threw together a design and I was like, no wonder I'm unhappy with this. I spent, a day on it and that was it. Oh, by the way, I have no idea. This is Capital City Distributors box. I have
Really?
no idea what came in this originally. But this was, I must have got it at Marvel, or maybe, who knows, even my LCS. I have no idea. But this must have been a promo from Capital City, and something came in here. I don't know if it was chocolates or comic book stuff, but that's the Capital City logo right there. So I'm like, I wonder what came in this. I have no idea. I've just had this box for like 30 years.
Right, I remember Capital City, and I was working 30 years ago. I was working in the comic book shop. I don't remember getting anything from Capital City like that, looked like that. So I don't know what that was from.
I don't know. I'm wondering now. Somebody out there must know what came in this box, because I have no memory. I'm gonna have to ask in our Marvel group a question. What came in this box? Because like I said, I've been keeping my stamps in it since the 90s. But what? I'm gonna leave it out and take a picture of it and ask in the Marvel group. Somebody might remember. Somebody. You must have plenty of mystery knickknacks from your days at Marvel in the comic shop. Do you have stuff you're like, where did this come from?
Yeah, depending on what it is like I have a lot of promotional stuff. So pins, buttons. So those luckily says what they're for.
Right.
Like the Archie versus Punisher pins that I have, or the wooden, not wooden, I'm sorry, the plastic pins like the Punisher's logo and Spider-Man head and Ghost Rider head. Those are all from promotional stuff. And then posters that it's like, did the poster come from a magazine? Did the post, or was the poster something that came to the comic book shop as a promotional poster? So those are sometimes hard to figure out if they were the regular $5.95 for sale poster, or were they the promotional posters? Because sometimes there'll be one and the same, where it's like, oh, the only difference is the logo is a bit off or something like that. So because a lot of times it would be the same artwork used.
Yeah, 62 Lefty Blue says it looks like a cigar box. I don't think they'd send out anything that expensive as cigars. eBay says Submariner number 44 versus the Human Torch is almost mine. I don't have a bid on it. It's almost mine only if I bid on it. Which I was looking for that. Submariner 44 is one of these, 10th anniversary covers, but I think it's a little more expensive than a lot. Well, in decent shape, it's a little more because it's a Submariner Human Torch cover. So I think, I don't know, still nobody wants those covers but me. So I don't know if it was really a little more expensive, or I just haven't found the right one yet. Because like I said, most of them, these Submariners, I'm paying about $10 to $12 a piece for them, shipping included. But some people want 40, 50, $100 for them. So it's like, no, thank you. Some people want $40 for a good plus copy that the next guy wants $8 for a good plus copy. It's just so all over the place. All right, we should probably say good night now and let Paolo get to bed.
Especially because I have a weekend with a big race. It's the Le Mans 24 Hours.
So we'll give you some balloons and some confetti. Mm-hmm. Oh, pardon me, some lasers first, then some confetti.
Well, there will be laser show, that's for sure.
Have a great night and a great weekend.
Everybody have a good night out there.
See ya.
We'll catch you next time.
Take care.